Welcome to the Witness Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Trader, and this is a special episode. On December 27, 2000, my father, John Kevin Trader Sr., passed away suddenly at the age of 44. To say his death was unexpected would be a gross understatement. The news of his passing had the same effect on me as if I had heard a nuclear bomb had been dropped on my hometown. It was an absolute shock to my system, and in an instant, my entire life was completely changed. Now, some people who know me may be surprised to hear me say what I'm about to say about my dad, but my father was to me a kind of moral compass. I could rely on him to always tell me the truth. I could rely on him to always give me an honest assessment of where I was and how I was, even if I didn't ask for it. I usually didn't ask for it. But I trusted him because I knew the things he said didn't come from a company handbook or a prescribed set of notes explaining how to deal with your teenage son as a Christian dad. The things he said to me came from his own hard-earned experiences. He had seen the hand of God in his life. He knew God's voice for himself, and I knew that when he spoke to me, he was doing his best to teach me how to see and hear those things. Now, my father and I had many things in common, and maybe even too many things, and that would a lot of times cause us to clash. All my life, people would badger me by telling me how much I reminded them of him. It drove me crazy, and I finally felt like I just had to get out from under him. So I joined the U.S. Air Force. And, I also thought that by joining, I might also make him proud, and I think I did. However, I have to admit, sometimes I regret that decision because I wish I could have been there for a few more days. I wish I could have been able to be in his presence during his last few days on earth. But that is why we must trust God. So today marks 25 years since his passing, and I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to honor him on this day by releasing this special episode of the Witness Podcast. I admit this could seem self-serving, and I guess in a way it is, but I also know that there are many of you out there who have lost someone very near and dear to you. So I've asked my two surviving sisters and my mother to join me on the witness stand today. And I pray that as you listen to this episode, that hearing our experiences and the process that we have been through will also help you process your own loss and grief. Now, I know that this has been an unusually long intro, so without further ado, I call to the stand Luann Trader Richards, Elizabeth Johnson, Heidi Brown, and me, Kevin Trader. And just before we get started, I do want to apologize if the audio seems not quite up to the usual quality. We had 4 people and we only had 2 microphones, so that may have caused a little bit of a technical issue, but we've done our best to overcome that, and hopefully it won't be too much of an obstacle for you to listen. I think it's going to be okay, but I did want to just put that out there. So anyway, here we go. All right, I am here today with my mom and my 2 sisters for a special episode. If you've listened to episode 1, which is when I shared my testimony, you heard me speak about the passing of my father. And it just so happens that coming up on December 27th, which is when this episode will be released, this will be the 25th anniversary of my father's passing. And it just so happens that, I don't know, I feel like God has sort of moved things around for me to be able to commemorate that. And I'm honored and I'm glad that I will be able to commemorate the 25th anniversary of that. And so I wanted to bring my mom and my two sisters in here to share the story of what that was like for us. And the reason's not necessarily so that we can, sit here and cry for you guys. We want to do that because there may be some of you out there who have dealt with loss and grief. And I felt like, we could help you with that. I mean, a lot of times God puts us in situations He puts us in situations not just to create something in us, but also to give us an opportunity to use our experiences to help others. And so that's what we're trying to do with this episode. So getting off to a little bit of a rocky start. But anyway, let's go ahead and introduce, first of all, well, I'll save my mother for last. We'll start from the youngest to the oldest. So we'll start with my sister, Heidi Brown. Just say hi, Heidi.
Hello, everyone.
And then my middle sister, Elizabeth Johnson.
It's an honor to be here.
And my mom, Luann Trader Richards.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, thank you guys, and it is an honor to have you here. I actually started thinking about this when I first started to put this podcast together. The idea to do this came to me, and I realized after that this was the 25th anniversary. So, and you guys can jump in to help me with the conversation anytime. But so yeah, I thought about doing this back then, and but I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to pull it off. So I'm just really glad that we actually are pulling this off. So thank you guys for being here.
Anytime. A little side note. I know that Kevin said this is a very special episode, but I just want to say that I haven't listened to every single episode that's been put out, and I do certainly plan on it, but I do think that every episode that has been put out so far has been amazing, and I've gotten something from each one. So I've been very blessed by this podcast and the people that have been on it before us.
I agree.
Thanks, Liz. All right, so I guess before we get into the whole thing, we'll do a quick talk about the family heart disease. And I really would appreciate you guys jumping in if there's something, because I don't necessarily know everything, but the Trader family has, and I've talked about this a little bit with my daughter Ava on the episode that featured her, but our family has a history of heart disease. We don't necessarily know how far back it goes, but we do know that it started with my father. He had open heart surgery when he was 5 years old, and then he had a sister who had a heart condition that actually took her when she was 9 months old. So my father lost his little sister when she was only 9 months old. And then move forward to me and my brothers and sisters. I grew up with a murmur, which was never really a big deal. My two sisters both had open heart surgery. That would be Elizabeth and my other sister, Jenny, who is actually no longer with us either. I'm just laughing. I'm probably going to cut that out, actually.
We laugh when we're nervous.
Yeah.
We laugh instead of cry.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, of my two sisters that are here, my sister Elizabeth had open heart surgery when she was 2. And then moving to the next generation, Elizabeth has 3 kids, and 2 of the 3 have heart conditions, and 1 had open heart surgery. And then my kids I have 5 kids, and 4 of my kids had heart conditions, and I had 3 kids who required open heart surgery. And then my sister Jenny had 3 kids that have all three of them had heart conditions, but only one had open heart surgery. So as you can see, it's very prolific throughout the family, and associated with that heart condition. And I mean, Liz, I know you know a lot, so if you want to get into the nuts and bolts a little bit with it, you can jump in, but I'm just trying to give an overview right now. So associated with that heart condition, there's a gene that causes sudden death. And because of that gene, we have all gotten ICDs, which if you go back to my daughter's episode, I put a link in the description that describes what an ICD is. But that is to counteract the gene that causes a sudden death, so that there's a defibrillator involved that can shock you back to life, which was not a part of this when my father passed away. We didn't know about that yet, and also we lost my sister and my brother, and we weren't fully sure of that situation with them, so they never had the ICD. But since their deaths, we have all gotten the ICD. Does that sound pretty accurate?
Yeah, your dad and Paul actually both had pacemakers put in, because Paul's heart would actually slow down to, at one time, to 33 beats. So they put a pacemaker in to speed up his heart, because they didn't know about the gene at that time.
Right. And what was Dad's pacemaker for?
Your dad's was actually, he went in for a catheterization, and they realized that there was an issue with the heart. So then they gave him the pacemaker, and he almost didn't make it off the table on that one. And then, of course, he came home and developed an infection.
Oh. I didn't know about that. Liz, you looked like you were about to say something.
I was actually just going to kind of say the same thing. I was going to say I think it's important to note that at the time of Dad's passing, we knew there was a genetic heart condition in our family, but we didn't really know the full extent of it in terms of the mutation that causes sudden death. All we really knew, I think, is that some of us had ASDs, atrial septic defect, which is why we had the open heart surgeries. And then pretty prevalent, I think, in all of us is a AVE block to some degree, yes. First, second, or third degree block.
Which is an electrical issue.
Yes, which is why I think you would get the pacemaker.
Yeah.
That was the main reason why your Paul and your dad, because your dad's heart would actually beat 2 times, skip, beat, and skip, because all the nurses were like fascinated with your father, of course. But yes, so that's why one of his reasons for getting his pacemaker.
Okay, so I actually I wanted to talk a little bit about that. When Dad got the pacemaker, so when did they find out that he needed that?
He went for a physical for the fire department, and it was pretty fascinating, because I think God had already put something in your dad's heart, letting him know, give him a little...
His spiritual heart.
His spiritual heart, yeah, I'm sorry, his spiritual heart. Yeah, because on our way to the hospital, he's giving me all this information about talking to the lawyer, and if anything happens to him, this is what I need to do. And I'm like, come on, John, you're getting a catheterization. It was nothing about the pacemaker at that time, so I thought he was kind of overthinking this, but apparently he wasn't. So then when we got there, they took him in, and I can really remember, because there was all these people in the waiting room, and I'm watching them all come and go, and I'm like, okay, there's a problem here, because this was supposed to take like 45 minutes, and it wound up taking hours. And then I remember around 2 in the afternoon, they finally came out to talk to me, and of course, when you know you're going to go into a room, it's not a good thing. And they took me into a room, and they told me that they're having an issue with the pacemaker, with getting it hooked up, and that it would be a couple more hours, and that they'd almost lost him twice. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I got on the phone immediately, and it was kind of interesting, because there was actually a church meeting of the elders at that time, and I got a hold of somebody, I believe it was Sean Whaley, but I'm not totally sure, and they were praying immediately for your dad. And then we were there till about 7 that night, and then he stayed overnight, and we got him home the next day, and then he was okay, but he had actually he had sinus surgery, and they didn't give him medication like they should have, which I didn't know. It was hindsight, and I believe that was part of what happened also with him.
Okay. What is a catheterization? Do you guys know what that?
I think it's when they shoot dye up your an artery in your leg or groin,
They have a wire going up, and they shoot the dye up.
and they're looking for something with a
Yes.
contrast.
Yes,
it.
with the contrast.
Okay.
So the catheterization, there was a purpose to it. There was a reason he got it, but I don't. They were looking for something when they were doing that, but I'm not sure what that was.
Okay. That's just good information for people that might not be familiar with all the medical terms. So after the pacemaker was I mean, I was in the Air Force when when he was getting the pacemaker. I didn't even know that he had a pacemaker until I came home for his funeral. So
Do you remember how long before he passed that he had the pacemaker put in? Was it the same year?
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 months.
I thought it was
Yeah,
June.
it was
of that
actually,
year.
yeah, it was in the beginning of summers when he had it, and he passed away in December.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so moving forward from that, I just wanted to lay a little bit of groundwork for, and I did want to mention. So, Mom, you don't think that Dad passed because of the sudden death, Gene?
Oh, yeah, he definitely did. But there was also an infection involved in it.
Okay.
But he definitely did. Yeah, it was because of the gene, the sudden death.
I see.
Because he wasn't sick or anything. But once they did it, they did find an infection. But definitely it was the sudden death syndrome.
But I feel like when we recalled later, we remember that the days leading up to his death, he was very tired.
Yes,
so
all
we,
the
we
time.
didn't really realize that at the time until after, like, reflecting. We realized, he was falling asleep, like, a lot on Christmas Day and even before that.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, we've never been super great at taking pictures, which is odd. We've never been super great at taking pictures, which is odd. But in the pictures that we have of that Christmas, like literally, you see him in the background sleeping.
You have pictures from that Christmas? There's like 2 or 3 I've seen.
Wow, I didn't know that either. I'd like to see those.
Me too.
They're probably in that.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to do something hard. So on December 27th of 2000, my father passed away. And I would like, if you guys could, please, each of you walk us through what that day was like for each of you. And all like maybe the days leading up to it too. Like if you know, like looking back, if there was things that mattered to you.
Looking back now, I can remember because it was so odd. Excuse me. But I remember him talking to you for a long time on Christmas, which was unusual. To me, it was just, I just feel like God had everything in place that Christmas, because the little things you think about, like, for instance, Christmas presents, your dad didn't get one personal thing. Everything he got was like household stuff, like towels. And I'm like, why are you giving him towels? So anyway, so it was just, I look back now and I just feel like God just knew. I mean, of course he did, but it was just, when you look back at it and you realize all these little things that went on, and it was a quiet Christmas and everybody just had our special time.
Yeah, I guess I'll recount, because you just brought that to mind. I did share this when I gave my testimony, so I'll just give you a brief recount, because that was a defining thing. That conversation with Dad was a defining thing. So, and it was just when
It was really defining, because I'm going to tell you right now, it meant a lot to your dad, because I remember him getting off of the phone and what it did to him. He needed that at that time. He needed that.
That's awesome. I want to just give you a little bit of backstory, and this will tell you a little bit about my father. Before I went in the Air Force, this was probably between 94 and 96. I just know that it was around the time of the 25th anniversary of Woodstock, that big concert in 1969. It's an important detail because I happened to start watching the concert on PBS one night when I was at home, and Dad saw me watching it, and he wound up sitting down with me and watching it with me. And we started talking about those days because, he experienced some of that. And he just kind of taught me about it. And so fast forward to, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily Christmas night that I called. It was maybe like a day or two before Christmas night. Well, my mom's shaking her head no. Maybe actually it might. All I know is
it was Christmas night because he watched Braveheart.
Oh. I know that I had gone and bought that Woodstock movie, and I was sitting in my room, and I decided to watch it. And while I was watching, I also wound up having some beers while I was watching it, and I started to think about my dad, and I started to get really homesick. And I wasn't living for God then, but as a rule, I never called home when I had been drinking. Never. I just didn't want to do that. But for whatever reason, I was thinking about Dad and watching this concert, and so I called home. And typically, my phone calls home would be, I'd be on the phone with Dad for like 3 minutes, and then he'd pass me to the next person. I mean, we never talked on the phone for very long. But for whatever reason, that night, we talked for 3 hours. I mean, and I told him stuff. I remember I told him everything. I told him everything I'd been up to that whole time. I spilled my guts completely to him. And I remember saying to him like several times, I do not know why I'm telling you all this. I can't believe I'm saying all this to you right now. But it was one of the best conversations I ever had with him. And it was like the first time I ever felt like we were actually friends instead of just, father and son. And I mean, when those guys came to my door on the 27th, I don't remember what time it was for me, but it was my squadron commander, my first sergeant, and my shop chief. And I was scared to death. I was like, I didn't even, like, I'm thinking about the night before, like, what the heck did I do last night? I thought I was in some deep trouble, but I let him in, and the squadron commander sat me on the bed, and, he was a Southern guy, and he just puts his arm around me, and he's like, Airman Trader, your daddy died. And I laughed. I was like, there's no way you got the right person. I mean, I was like, I'm sorry, man, you guys made a big mistake. And then he gave me the printout from the Red Cross, and I still didn't believe it. But I remember I asked them to leave, and then I called home, and Brother Rhodes answered the phone, and that's the moment that I knew it was real. And because there was no reason for him to be answering the phone at the time, whatever time it was, there was no other reason for him to be answering the phone. So that's when I knew it was real, when I heard his voice, and everything kind of crashed for me after that. So
I would say I'm going to go first because I feel like Mom and Liz had their experience, I think, was a little bit more intense than mine the morning that he passed. So I feel like mine is just a little bit, just not as detailed. But I do remember the days leading up. It is amazing how God works. At the time, Liz and Paul, our other brother, and my mom were all working at the bowling center, and they worked a lot of nights. And we had to get a Christmas tree. And I remember Dad and I got the Christmas tree together. So that was a blessing. I feel like that was a blessing looking back. Although I was 13, so I'm like, I think I had a little bit of an attitude. Like, I want to go get a Christmas tree with Dad. But now, as a 38-year-old, I'm really thankful for that. But, typical 13-year-old attitude. And also, Dad and I were by ourselves again the night before. the night before he passed, the 26th. I'm pretty sure everyone was working or they weren't home. And I remember I was talking on the phone to a friend. It's, little details. And I remember him saying, "Good night, Heidi. Good night, Dad. Love you too." And he was like, "Don't be on the phone too long." I'm like, "I won't," And the next morning when he passed, I remember I didn't hear anything, but something just woke me up. And I looked out the window and I saw lights. And I was like, "Oh, somebody's hurt, a neighbor." And then I realized that the ambulance, it was ambulance and firefighters at our house. So I opened my bedroom door and I just remember seeing a police officer standing right outside our door. And I was like, "What is going on?" I just closed the door. I didn't even walk out because I was like in my pajamas, and I just closed the door. And then like a few minutes later, Mom came in with Paul and Liz and just told us to start praying. And that's, for me, that was my experience, like the morning that he passed. So, and I'll let them go. They have a lot more detail with that, but that was just my experience that morning.
Okay. Liz?
I actually don't have a ton of memories. I wish I did, of like the days leading up.
Oh, you were working.
Yeah, I was working a lot at the bowling center. Shout out to Sparta Park. And, but the day of, I do remember I don't remember if Paul was working, but I know me and Mom were working. I think we even drove together. And so we didn't get home until late. It was probably after midnight, I think. And the thing I think I remember the most, and, obviously you can't go back and change things. And thankfully we had a good relationship. So it's not like I remember walking up, because my bedroom was right next to my parents' bedroom. And so I remember looking at the bedroom door of my parents and thinking, getting ready to knock just to say goodnight. And then I didn't, because I was like, he's probably asleep. And so I just went straight to bed. And looking back now, obviously, I wish I had taken that 2 seconds to say goodnight. But you can't, yes. And so the next thing I remember, I went to bed and is my mom banging on my door, waking me up. And I don't even remember what she said. I don't remember all that. I just remember the panic. And I came out of my bedroom and their bedroom door was open, and I could see my dad on the floor. And I don't remember if you had already called 911 or if I called 911.
I called 911.
But I know that I took the phone and I was talking to them. And I remember thinking, when I was talking to them, this lady, I'm panicking, obviously. And I was thinking, how is this lady? She sounded so calm that she sounded like almost like she didn't even care. And obviously, knowing now, that was her training. But in my little head, I'm thinking, like, she doesn't even sound like she cares. Like, where's her urgency to get this taken care of? And it just felt like it took forever for an ambulance to come, which I'm sure it was like 3 minutes. But I remember opening the door for them, telling them where to go. And then we went, and me and Paul, I don't remember if I knocked on Paul's door or my mom did, but I just remember us going into Heidi's room after that. And it's a funny little dumb detail, but I remember my mom, the three of us being in her room, in Heidi's room, and my mom coming in and saying, "You guys need to pray." And for some reason, we were kids. I think it was a trauma response. We all looked at each other and like snickered, like,
What?
Yes, we're all.
I don't remember that.
Where was Jenny?
She was married. She's
Oh,
gone.
oh.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
were 17.
I was 17. Yes, I was 17. So, and then so they came and got him, and then we all followed. And Mom drove to the hospital, and we all followed. We were all in the car, and yeah, that was the rest.
Okay, yeah, we did work the night before on the 26th, and
So you, Paul, and Liz all worked together
at
that
the
night.
bowling center. I'm not sure if Paul was there or not. You never know where Paul was going to be at that time. Yeah, but anyway, so I'm not sure if he was working or not, but yeah, we did get in really late that night. And I remember, because usually your dad is always asleep when I get there, and he was awake. And we talked for like 2 hours, just talking, and it was just, unusual, okay, because your dad didn't talk a lot.
That's not a traitor trait.
No, it is not a traitor trait. So, when I look back at that, I just feel like that God just gave me that special time for him and for me. And I believe that's where my peace has come from, because of all the times that he gave us then. But when we got home, and then I just remember we went to sleep, and all of a sudden I heard this choking sound, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? And I wake up, and it's your dad. He's choking, and I mean, the details is there was blood coming out of his nose. So I don't know if y'all want to know that or not, but anyway, and then I put him on the floor. I kind of knew what to do in a way, and then we called 911, and they told me what to do about doing the CPR and all this stuff, and they were calling the ambulance at that time, but I knew. And then when the paramedics came in, we had a big walk-in closet. And I remember going in that walk-in closet and praying and telling God, if it's time, it's time. I mean, I knew what I had to say to God. And because I didn't want your dad to live an extra 10 years like Hezekiah and be lost. That's all I cared about. I know it sounds kind of odd when you're losing your husband, but that's all I could think about is I didn't want your dad to be lost. I just didn't want that. So I prayed that. And then I came out, and the paramedics were there, of course. And they told me, to make sure the kids are in their room because they were taking him to the hospital. They did not tell me at that time that he was gone yet, just that they were taking him to the hospital. But I do remember this little thing was the one policeman said to me, and where were you at the time of his death? At the time this happened, and all I could think of was, this is like Law and Order. That's how crazy your mind goes on these times, So then I did remember us, that them taking them, and I remember getting to the hospital, and the ambulance was just pulling in, and I'm like, why are they just getting here? Why are they taking so long? Well, it's because he was already gone, but I didn't know that at the time. And then, of course...
So you got there before the ambulance?
We were there before the ambulance, yes.
Jeez.
Yes, that's what really kind of threw me off a little bit. And I'm like, wow. And I think they did that on purpose because they wanted the family to get in there before they brought your dad in. That's my way of thinking. So then, we weren't there when they brought him in, and then they took us to that little room, which we're all familiar with this little room by now in our lives, what that means. Of course, we did the time, and then we had to call Jenny and Rusty.
Do you remember what they said to you?
Not really. I don't really know. I just that he had passed, and I remember your brother just walking out. Yeah, he just had to get out of there. And I remember having to call because Rusty and Jenny were living at Meemaw's, and she was 8 months pregnant, and having to call Meemaw and tell them, about your dad. And it was, then of course they all came to the hospital, and we were all just waiting. And then finally the doctor came in and pulled me out, but it just took them a long time I guess they were just trying to, you got to remember, this is 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Times have changed on how they handle these situations, and it's just different. It's different now. Now you can go right in and be with them and all like that, but they didn't do any of that with us.
Wow. That's something that struck me, Mom. I remember, I don't know if I'll be able to say this we'll see. But I remember that when you got home from the hospital, there was a pot of coffee because Dad had set that up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. Before. Yes, he did. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we got home, and it was like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Four is when it all happened.
Yeah, 4 is my, okay, so then we got home about 6 then. Had to be around 6. It was late, yeah. And I remember, I believe it was Mark Evans and Tom Hook. They were all supposed to work together with your dad. And Mark Evans called and says, where's John at? He's not here yet. And having to tell him. And then, the Rhodes kind of came in. And I don't know what I would have done without Steve Rhodes, because he just helped me so much during that time. A lot of people did.
He was at the hospital.
He was yes, he came to the hospital.
How did he know about it so quickly?
Because we called him.
Oh.
We were all very, very close at that time. Our kids, all of our, you guys all were all close, playing together and grew up together. And Debbie and Steve were like our best friends at that time. We were all just very close. I don't know. Actually, they really helped me through it. And Antioch just stepped right up.
I just like when it came to Dad, I just like, to me he was such an iconic person. Like,
Okay, we're going overboard here, Kevin.
no, what I mean is, I'm not trying to turn him into something, but what I mean is, I never would have expected him to die. Just, he wasn't the kind of person that you expect to die, and it was just so hard. Even weeks, months after, it was so hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that he had actually died. It just didn't seem possible for that guy to be dead.
I also think you never think those things are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking that, like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Like, I didn't think I would ever lose, because you think that, you don't think that, I don't know, mortality, and I just couldn't believe that I had lost a parent. I remember so many times I feel like I was just thinking that the other day. I can't believe I've lost a parent, and it's been 25 years. You just don't think it's going to happen to you, but it does.
Yeah, I know. That's what kept coming across my mind. I when I was in the Air Force, I had seen people go home on emergency leave from time to time, and I remember just like, just being like, man, that's too bad for you. I mean,
The night that he passed, because he passed early in the morning, we had tickets. I think it was the same night. That's right. Mm-hmm. Because there was like a tradition in the years before that. I had went with him by myself a couple of times to watch.
Me too. No, I would go too.
Every time?
Yes, to see Riverdance.
Oh, I thought it was just me and him.
No, it was not.
We all went one time.
It was my
Yeah, but
memory.
it was us two with Dad.
Okay, Heidi was there too. Okay, so we would go see Riverdance at the Lyric in whatever, one of those in Baltimore. And this year we were doing something different. It was like a 50 show or something.
swing time.
Yeah. And more of us were going. We had like 6 tickets or 8 tickets or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, because we kind of had an attitude about it.
Yes, we did. We did. So the tickets were for that night, the 27th, and we decided to still go because what else do you do? And I remember sitting in the theater and looking down the row at everybody and thinking, like, did all that just happen? Like, was that real?
yeah, it's bizarre.
It was just so surreal. It was just a really
I'll bet.
surreal day. And then the days after were so surreal. Like, just, so I have some, like, a lot of memories of it, of course, but I feel like some of it I have almost blocked out because it was just so weird.
Yeah.
Like, just so weird.
It's funny though for me that Dad's funeral, even though I was the youngest that was the youngest I was out of all the deaths, but his funeral is the funeral that I remember the most. I almost have no memory of Paul and Jenny's funeral. It's like those are the ones I blocked out. The only thing I remember about Paul's funeral is the graveside. And I was 20.
Yeah, and I know what you mean. That whole period from the time that I got the news until like the funeral, I feel like I can almost recount every step I took. It's so burned in my mind. I mean, it changed my life completely.
Absolutely. I do want to add, since we're talking about the days leading up and even the days after, every year Dad would get each of us a gift just from him, just like a personalized gift. It was just something small. And that year, I think he got us all books. He got us all books. And mine hadn't come in yet. He had ordered it. And it's called The Christ Commission. It's actually a really good book. And anyway, so mine hadn't come in yet, but like a couple days after he passed, it came in, and it was it was really cool because it was like I was receiving a gift from him after he had passed.
Yeah, when I was home for like 40 days, and when I went back to base, there was a box of my Christmas presents at the post office, and he got me
So weird.
got me The Deer Hunter, which is a movie with
Martin
Robert De Niro and Christopher Walken.
Random.
He didn't get me anything.
Wow.
That's great.
But I think the reason, just in his defense, I think the reason he got me that is because in our conversation, we had talked about, at that time, I really wanted to be a filmmaker, and so we talked about movie making and stuff like that, and our favorite directors and actors. And I think he got me that movie because it was an Academy Award winner. It was something that he remembered when he, whatever. Just in his defense. I guess what I'd like to do next is, I talked a lot about all this stuff in my first episode, but one thing that I know about a person that we all look at always represents something different to each of us. Like John Trader was all of our dad. Mom, he was your husband. But he was somebody specific to each of us. So I would like to try to have each of you share who he was to you. And there's a point to that we'll get to, but if you could just share who he was to each of you.
Well, let's see. We met when we were young.
How old?
We were 17 and 18. And I do remember being in high school. I was a senior at the time. And I liked him and this other guy, and I didn't know who I liked the best. And then my best friend said, well, John Trader likes you. I'm like, well, then he's the one. That's how we started out, actually. So, and I knew he was the one. It's really funny because of his blue eyes. He had the best blue eyes ever. So, and we were very young when we got married. So it was a rocky road. It was a crazy road. We had lost our first child, which made it a little tough because I was 8 months pregnant, and it was a tough time for us to go through. And we had some people kind of working against us at the time that just really didn't think we were going to make it. But we knew we loved each other. We knew what we had, and we held on to that through that.
Mom, I just want to I think this is an important thing to say. Because it's an amazing thing to think that you were pregnant when you got married. And you were 18 and Dad was 17. So you were teenagers.
Right. And
you were pregnant. And the assumption, of course, is that you basically got married because you were pregnant.
Right.
And then you lost the baby. And you stayed together.
The amazing thing about it is when I found that, of course, I was pregnant, was we knew we loved each other. I mean, it would never have happened to begin with if we didn't. Of course, we all had goals and dreams, and that kind of got put on hold. But I can remember how our families reacted more than anything. And I had my side of the family was totally different than your dad's side. I mean, when we told Meemaw and Pop, Meemaw and I cried together. She hugged me and we cried together. My mother, total opposite. My dad broke his ankle on purpose, you know what I'm saying? Because he didn't want to take me down the aisle. So my godfather did. So it was such an up and down, tough time. It really, really was. And don't get me wrong, my mom and dad supported us afterwards. But my mom said, well, just get married to give the baby a name and then you don't have to stay with him. That's my mom's person. That's what I dealt with at that time. And I'm like, Mom, I love him. I'm not going to do that. And we found our own place together, and it was a little tiny place, but it was our place. So that was it was a scary situation. I mean, I was petrified of my mother and father. I really was. But then when I go to Meemaw and Pop-Pop's house, it was totally different.
Meemaw and Pop-Pop are my dad's parents.
Yes.
So
and I'll always remember that, and I cherish that because the support that my mother-in-law gave me, I think held me a lot during the tough times. No, I mean, of course, my mom and dad, they came around and everything, but nobody, and I don't care who hears this, but nobody is good enough for their daughter. It's the way it is in life, and it's how my parents just didn't think we were going to make it. My grandfather didn't think we were going to make it, and I remember that one song coming out, I think it's Shania Twain, You're Still the One, and We're Gonna Make It. I think, and I remember singing that and just saying, this is us. Yeah.
That's awesome. And the thing is too, it was another 4 years after you were married that you even had another kid. So
Right. And we grew up a little bit in that,
Yeah.
and it was good. It all worked out, God knows. And I remember, I really wanted the baby really bad. And I remember when telling your dad about you, I actually bought the Paul Anka record, Having Your Baby, and played it for when he walked through the door.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's what and it was good.
that's cool. Who's next?
So the question was, what was he to me, right? Or who was he to me? And I mean, obviously he was my dad, and that was first and foremost. I mean, I was 17, and I mean, like Heidi said, she was just a little 13-year-old, and I was kind of the same for me. I was wrapped up in my own thing, whatever. But the thing I remember, I think the most, I actually hadn't really thought about this very much.
Can you bring that up a little bit closer?
I actually hadn't thought about this very much, before now, or, just, I don't really allow myself to go very deep sometimes. But I do remember with Dad, he was kind of like my, safe place, kind of like the anchor. Mm-hmm. I remember I don't remember if it was someone's funeral. Kevin, I think it was you that wrote this eulogy, and you talked about it was like Aunt Lone or Aunt May or something, and how they were the anchor of the family. And that's kind of how I felt about Dad. Like, he was Mom.
Mom was just mom.
No, yes. And we had a good relationship, but, I was 17. And while Dad obviously disciplined me and stuff, my relationship with Mom was a little bit more volatile than with Dad. So he was kind of like the calm force in the house sometimes. And even, Jenny and Mom used to man, that was a lot.
It was World War III.
Yes. So Dad was just like he was quiet, and that he was a quiet person, and that reflected in also the way he dealt with each of us too. I mean, of course we had our moments of being disciplined. I'm not saying he didn't discipline us or Mom was the only one or whatever like that. I mean, I can remember some times that weren't very pretty, but
I don't remember Dad ever disciplining me.
you sound like Zoe. But so that's what he was to me. He was that anchor and that kind of calm force in our house.
Yeah.
You gotta come up closer, Heidi.
Yes. So for Dad, for me, I was 13, so I don't know. I remember a lot about him, but at the same time, I feel like it's like this broad memory. I do know just little details. I love history, and I feel like he was the one that instilled a love of history in me.
Oh,
and now,
yeah, for
and now,
sure.
Kevin, even more so, but I don't think I would love history the way that I do if it wasn't for Dad. I remember talking to him about, I was like 13, probably 12 even. He'd be talking to me about the Civil War, and I was really interested in it, 12, 13-year-old girl. And also, I know that I always, like Liz said, he was very easy to talk to for me. I remember I felt like I could talk to him about almost anything, and he would listen to me. I remember there was something that I had to go to that I didn't want to go to, and Mom was going to make me go because I think it was a family thing, and I just didn't want to go. And I remember I felt comfortable enough to be able, just talk to him about it. I think we were sitting in his little CRV. I remember, and just I didn't want to go. I don't really know what he said, but I actually think it was supposed to happen around the time that he passed, so he actually did get me out of it. So, but I do want to say that I remember as a preteen, teenager girl, there are a lot of things that he did at that time that embarrassed me.
He was very goofy.
Well, and he was just very individual. He truly did not. This is from my point of view. I don't know if you guys can speak to this since you were a little older, but he truly did not really care what other people thought of him.
He didn't play by the rules that most other people play by.
He definitely
that's for sure.
didn't. And looking back now, and at the time, because I remember he wore this. I don't know, it looks like some kind of Civil War trench coat to church. I don't know. I would be so embarrassed when I would see him wearing that thing. But looking back, you know, I'm proud of that. I'm proud that he did play by his own. I mean, he loved God and he truly had a walk with God, and you saw that and you knew that. But at the same time, he was his own person. I mean, everybody is, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. He really did. He just didn't care what other people thought about him. And now, like, I admire that about him.
No, I talked about this in the first episode. You know, we all had this love for the 50s and the 60s and Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
And one of my most prized possessions is he bought me an ashtray from the Copacabana Club.
I remember you saying that.
And I was like, what kind of apostolic father buys an ashtray for his 15-year-old son?
Yeah.
But he didn't care about that. He knew it was something that I would really like. And so he just didn't play by those rules. He just, I really love that side of him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to say about who he was?
Well, he might have introduced you guys to the 50s and 60s, but he introduced me to Greg Allman and Allman Band and to Jeff Beck.
I don't even know who they are.
Just saying, a lot of our friends know who they are.
Yep, I'll bet. Well, I know who the Allman Brothers are anyway.
Yeah.
I do remember because we all love. I mean, you probably the most, Kevin, but we all loved Elvis.
Yeah.
And I remember we had that Elvis gospel CD, and we used to play that thing on repeat in that blue Astro van that we. But it's funny because I don't even think about it, but around this time of year, I always feel compelled to listen to that album. You know, I don't even think about it, and then I realize, oh, you know what, this is about that time, and I remember listening to that CD the days leading up to his death, like in the car. So it's like I always feel compelled to listen to that CD.
Another thing that was cool is that growing up, because of who he was, I feel like our family, had a lot of like inside jokes. Like,
I gotta say that even though that is more the natural, the natural side of him, I have to say that what I always admired about your dad was he always had a relationship with God from the time he was a little boy, and being with his grandmother, who was your dad's mother. His dad's mother, and he would sit on her lap when she was a little boy, and she would sing songs to him, and they would pray together. And I remember that was probably his first experience with his walk with God, and he's always had that throughout his life, and did rely on God. And I remember us going to a church, and it was where you went to school when you were little, you and Jenny both, and him and Mike McGurk and John Engblom were in business together, and they came to Antioch. And I remember him going to Antioch, and I'm going to the other church, and the pastor saying to me, "What is going on with John? Why isn't he with you? And shouldn't you be doing, more?" And I'm like, and that's when I made that defining moment. Okay, I need to be with John Trader. I don't need to be here, because we should be together. And I believe that was his strong love for God, and his commitment is a lot of who I am today.
why do you think he stopped going to St. Paul's and started going to Antioch?
I think because he was with these guys, and I believe when he walked in there, he felt the presence of God. And your dad was always searching God, searching and learning about God. And I think that was actually when he got the Holy Ghost and got baptized, because he did that before I did. And the truth was there.
Yeah, I feel like I remember part of the story was that he had come across some things in the Bible that he had questions about, and he asked the pastor at St. Paul's.
Yes, he did, yes.
And the pastor just kind of brushed him off like, we don't know, those are mysteries and we don't know. And it really sort of put Dad off.
Yeah, because he was searching at the time. He wanted to know who God really was.
Yeah, and I remember too, Mike McGurk Sr. had said that they actually got a job painting the pastor of St. Paul's house, and they kept wanting to talk to him about spiritual things, and the pastor was like, guys, I'm home, I don't want to, I like to leave work at work.
Right.
And
yeah.
they were like, what? So it
Yeah.
just really sort of left a sour taste.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, just to kind of build off of the last question, can you just talk about what your actual relationship was like with Dad? Like things you had in common and ways that you connected with him?
All of us,
Yeah, whoever wants to go
we
first.
didn't have anything in common.
That's probably true for you. Bob.
It was. We were actually probably opposites of each other. He was the quiet one. I was not. And I remember after him passing, and I remember coming to church. It was New Year's Eve service, and I wasn't sure if I was going to come or not. And I did. And I remember sitting there, and I think Heidi, you were next to me. I don't know where you were, Liz, but anyway, I remember sitting and thinking, this is supposed to be where he's supposed to be next to me, because that was our commitment to each other and what held us together during a lot of the tough times. And it was different. And I know that was our biggest thing that we had in common was our love for God.
Was that your first service back?
That was my first service back, yeah.
Wow.
You're probably sitting with your friends.
I was 17, and I'm not proud of how I was then, but
I understand.
I most likely was with my friends. I may not have even been at church. She might have let me stay home that night. And I remember going along with being 17 and selfish. I remember at the viewing that night, I was like, my brother was coming home. They were literally waiting to close the place down for him to get there. And I was still like, can I go with my friends?
And I remember when she asked me if she could go for friends, I'm like, you need to go ask your father. I'm like, oh, that's right, he's not here.
Good night.
True, it's true.
Jeez.
I'm not proud of it, guys. 17. Yeah. I think in terms of having things in common with him, I do remember that we both like to, I'm not saying I like to cook. I thought I did. But looking back now, I think because before he passed away, I had all these, he liked to cook. After he got into the fire.
I did not get that from him.
No.
After he got into the fire department, he, they all cooked their own meals. So he would come home, and that's when he learned a lot about, well, maybe he knew this before, but I remember us having a lot of different meals after he started the fire department, because he learned a lot about different seasonings and all that kind of stuff. And
He loved Emeril Lagasse.
I actually bought him an Emerald book the year that he passed, and I still have it. I did not return it.
That's why on his plaque it says I've been kicked to the top notch.
Top notch. Because he used to say, I'm going to kick this up a notch. Emeril Lagasse used to say that.
Yes.
If you ever watched it. Yeah, my dad, I got him a book about Robert E. Lee, and which is questionable now thinking back. Anyway.
Jeez.
But anyway, and I was 13, and I didn't have a lot of money, so after he passed, I returned it back to the store so I could get that $11 back.
Nice.
I actually returned to the store all of his personal items because I didn't need them.
That's how we dealt with our grief.
Yeah, I remember there being a little joke because he was a big he was big on selling stuff on eBay. He had like a whole little side eBay side business, and he'd gotten that pacemaker put in June. And so he'd only had it for 6 months before he died, and there was like a little joke that we were going to put it on eBay and be like barely used.
Like new condition.
Like new condition.
Okay, so Liz, I know you started a little bit, but anything like, what ways did you connect with Dad? Like, was it just overcooking, or you did kind of explain your relationship with him in some depth, but
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. It's not like we sat and cooked. I don't want to make it sound like we just cooked together, like a happy little father and daughter. Like, but
I'm trying to get at, like,
no, I know what you're
when
saying.
you think of him, who was he?
I mean, yeah, I do feel like I did already. I mean, like I said, he was the calm in the house, and but I do remember with cooking and baking with him, one thing that he did that always annoyed me until I learned how to use it to my advantage was that if you were doing something and he thought he could do it better, he would basically take it over. And I can.
So he would do that on purpose.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. So I remember, I distinctly remember making a cake, and I was icing the cake, and he thought he had a better way to do it, and I remember throwing the spatula down and just saying, "Well, then you do it."
Man, he did that with everything.
Yes,
I mean,
and I
in
did
my
learn.
life.
I actually think I talked about this at his funeral when I spoke. I learned, if I didn't act like I knew how to mop a floor, he would just end up taking it over.
Totally.
So
Totally.
you learned really quickly to use that to your advantage. So
It's funny because that always drove me crazy when he would do that.
I mean, it did it first, but then I was like, all right.
I just
You
didn't
get
have it. I
wise.
was too young. I was too young to know.
Yeah, so I don't remember, exactly. I do know that with the cooking thing, for a little while I thought I wanted to go into cooking school, and I think applied. I went to AACC and started their culinary arts program and stuff, and then I realized a little later on that it really was not what I wanted to do. It was more because that's what he enjoyed doing. It was sort of my way of trying to stay connected after he passed, and I definitely did give that up because that was not for me. But so I don't totally remember a ton of things we had in common, but I don't know. I know we had a good relationship, and we didn't have like the deep talks like you did, Kevin, and stuff. And I think that's probably not abnormal, but I could talk to him, and I always enjoyed being with him. I do wish, obviously looking back at my age now, at my 17-year-old self, that I had, appreciated him a little bit more when he was here.
Same.
But, again, I've said it 1,000 times. I was 17.
How about you, Heidi?
I think I pretty much covered what I was going to say. Just that I did just like Liz, he was someone I felt like I could always talk to. I do remember him being very frugal, probably because we just didn't have a lot of money. We never went out to eat.
Never.
Well, he didn't like going out to eat. He preferred eating a home cooked meal, but we never, and we didn't even go to fast food. But I remember when he would make me go yard sailing with him because I did not enjoy that. I remember like specifically going to McDonald's, and he got a 2 cheeseburger meal for us to share. We each got a cheeseburger. We didn't get our own, oatmeal. It was very frugal, but I do remember he had a sense of humor. I feel like he made me laugh a lot. I remember that, and yeah. I mean, I was 13, so I feel like it's harder. It's hard for me to it's easier for you. You have a lot more memories with him, I feel like, than I do. So it's just.
And I also think along with that, like people, I'm sure there are people who won't agree with this, but I think just as daughters and as opposed to you being his son, our relationship was just different. Like we did not have. I can remember you talking about some of the things you guys talked about. Like he would tell you a lot more about some of the calls he went on in the fire department. I was like, he never told us that. So there was a lot more conversations and stuff that we didn't have with him that you did. There was definitely a difference. And like I said, I'm sure people have, there's people who wouldn't agree to that, but it just was.
I think that the amazing thing that I remember the best was his kids were his life. We were his life. He was a total committed family man. He actually could have done a second job, but he always made sure he was off on weekends because that was the days he spent with us and with the kids. And I do believe that he made a point of spending time with each one of his kids so they would know who he was.
Yeah, until he worked at the fire department, I don't remember him ever working on a Saturday.
He never did. He would not. He didn't care if we didn't have any money. He did not work on a Saturday. No.
I don't even remember the time before he worked at the fire department.
Oh, wow.
That's all I remember is him being a
You were very
firefighter.
young.
I do actually remember his like graduation or whatever it was you would call it. I have very vague memory of it though.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Dad and I were close, but I never felt like we were like friend close. Like,
I think he and Paul.
yeah,
were
and
more
I
so.
remember being envious of his and Paul's
Yeah.
relationship.
They would go
because
golfing all the time.
I think Dad and I had a lot in common, but also a lot in common personality wise, and because of that, he was hard on me, and so we fought a lot. But we also could relate about a lot of things, so we could have fairly deep conversations because we just understood each other. And the one thing that I remember, like when he passed, is just how lonely I felt because there's no one else alive that I ever connected with or ever thought could understand me the way Dad understood me, because it was just like a instinctual thing. It's hard to explain, but
Well, it's funny because I feel like you have this like much more deeper understanding or remembering of who Dad was, and for me, it was like, oh, for me, Dad was as because I was 13 when he passed. Whatever I asked him to get for me from the store, he would get it for me.
well, that definitely was not my
it
relationship
was.
with
It
him.
was. Yeah, he would. He just said put it on the grocery list, and he would go and get it.
Oh, wow.
That's what
I
I
was the
remember.
youngest child.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. He would get anything I needed from the store.
Interesting. But that's sort of kind of where I'm going with this, is how different the same man actually was to each of us. It's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Mom, were you about to say something? Okay, so I'd like to also talk, if you could share, what were your feelings? What was it like when you knew that he passed? Like, I know I've shared, the way it felt for me. Like I literally just felt like everything stopped, and I just did. I like everything was just completely on pause, and just crushed. So, I'd just like to have you guys share.
That was one thing when I listened to your first episode that I could definitely relate to. That it was so weird when you had this big thing just happen, and just watching how like life was just continuing.
Yeah.
You felt like your life just stopped, like everything just comes crashing down, like you said. But you look out and everybody else is just continuing as normal, and you're like, how can everybody just be
I know
normal?
you just want to like scream. Don't you
Yeah.
people know that my father just died?
Yeah, and it's so weird because it's like that. Not to be off topic, but it's like when you go out and you encounter strangers, you really don't know what they're going through, right? Anybody could have just gone through this traumatic experience, so you really don't know, And you think people just read your mind and know that you're going through this, but they really don't. But like, I mean, like it did feel like. I mean, not to be dramatic, I am dramatic, but not to be dramatic. But it really did feel like my heart was ripped out.
Absolutely.
I mean, no matter what age you are, I feel like losing a parent or losing anyone that you're close to is going to be, devastating. And it just, like I said before, it was just that feeling of, I can't believe this is happening to me. Like, I can't believe this is happening to my family, because I just never thought it would happen, and that's what it felt like. And I just remember, I always feel bad saying this, because I know, Mom, you feel bad, and I don't want you to, because you were doing the best that you could. Mm-hmm. You really were, and I appreciate everything that you have done for us. And you always put us first, and I appreciate everything you did. And all the things that you did for us in that time after he passed, we wouldn't be able to have things that we did. But I'm saying this after he passed, it was a very lonely time for me. I'm saying this, I know you always say you feel guilty, but because my mom, she had to work, she had to work, and Liz and Paul were working at night. And so, before that, Dad and I were home together a lot. And so after he passed, before that, Dad and I were home.
We heard you, bud.
Okay. So after he passed, I was home alone a lot by myself at night. You know, because Mom would have to work till
man.
midnight.
Yeah, see, that is an experience that is only to you.
And to be honest, I wasn't going to say this, but I will get a little vulnerable, I guess. But there were times when I did have close to suicidal thoughts. I did, because I just felt very lonely. And I wasn't alone. I had family. But, you know, when things like that happen,
that
your
is a
mind...
massive void that was filled just a month before.
Right. And so that's what it was like for me. It was just very, very lonely because I had gone from having these nights with Dad to not having that at all.
I can't imagine.
And even church, you know, because Mom and Liz, they sometimes they would work on church, like or it was Monday night church probably at the time. And so I would get a ride to church. I would just find rides. I remember Sister Sylvia saying, "Old Faithful." That's what she would call me because I always made sure I got to church. And I really think that's what got me through those days was just getting to church. Honestly.
So you and Dad would go to church, just the two of you?
I think we had to have, because I do remember going to church a lot. There were times where I did have to find a ride to church. And a lot of that before that is hazy.
That's heartbreaking,
I don't know, but
Baron.
I don't know, Mom, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just remember getting rides to church.
I don't remember that.
Oh. I don't think it was Sunday church. It's probably Monday night church.
That is heartbreaking.
But yeah, that's what I remember. Just
Thank
the
you for sharing
loneliness.
that, Heidi.
That was I didn't know that, Heidi. Now I feel terrible. No.
Makes you feel real good about life.
I want to feel guilty.
Does make you feel kind of bad there, guys. But anyway, I just remember church was probably the hardest thing for me to go to because of our relationship. And I don't know how many times I had to get up and leave the service. And we had a prayer room at that time. And I remember Sister Wright, Mother Right now, she would sing this one song, and she'd look at me, and I knew, and I had to get up and go. And Debbie Rhodes would follow me right out because she knew. But anyway, I just know that my heart was is gone. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life. I know with my kids it's been tough, but when your person that you love since you were a teenager just is gone, the void was unreal at that time. I've never had such pain in my heart. I really don't know how I made it because the pain in my heart was so intense then that I just thought it was going to burst. And I remember thinking, I knew I would get this heavy cloud over me, and it was like a dark cloud would come over, and I knew what was coming. It was like a sense of depression, and it would come down on my shoulders. And I remember thinking, okay, God, I know what this is, and I'm going to get through it. You're going to help me through this until it lifted. And I would get this heaviness like at least once a week come over me and just bring me totally down. But I knew I had to pick myself back up again because I had 5 kids. I had a new granddaughter coming, and you just know what you have to do. You got responsibility. I had a responsibility to my family to keep things going because I'm all they had at that time. And I just remember all of that. And it was probably the worst time of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that pain, it almost is physical. It's like
I
a
agree.
dull ache almost.
Yes.
I remember that, man. I don't. We just want it to go away, and it wouldn't go away. You just have to like sort of wait it out, I guess.
You had to wait it out, and you had to let all of the emotions come out with it, which was really hard to do at certain times because you never knew when it was going to hit you. So you just had to get away from people, which is what I was really good at doing. I was good at hiding my emotions at the time because I had to because of you guys. I had to be the strong one. So I'd have to wait, and then I could finally let it all out. And then you'd feel a release. But that pain was the worst thing I've ever been through in my life.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Liz? People listening are probably going to think I'm like a sadistic.
I don't remember that opening question.
What was life like for you when you knew that he had passed? What was that like?
Honestly, this is gonna sound. Hopefully, people won't think less of me. But when Heidi talks about feeling alone and stuff, it's partly because, again, I was 17, and I was pretty selfish, and I think I used the fact that Mom was doing things on her own to my absolute full advantage. I took advantage of the fact that she couldn't, keep, not that I was out partying and doing crazy things, but I think that's how I dealt with him being gone, was just taking advantage of the fact that, I mean, she worked nights and I did too, but not all the time, obviously not the same nights as her every time. And so again, I wasn't like out like hard partying.
Well, don't be afraid, because somebody is going to listen to this and they're going to be able to, and they're going to hear what you say and they're going to relate to what you say. And that's for each of us. So just
Luck
say
to
what
you.
you say.
I mean, that's just it. I mean, I'm trying not to, I know that Heidi wasn't saying this with the intent of making us feel bad, and I'm not saying I feel bad that I didn't know that, that I didn't take the time to, I feel like as close as we all were, we also sort of floated along in our own worlds after that a bit. Mm-hmm. Just because we didn't know how to deal with it. It was so fast. It was so sudden. You were gone, and then you obviously came home. Jenny was off. She was married and literally about to have a baby, and then did, thank God, because Juliet was the gift we didn't know we needed. And, Mom was working a lot and just trying to just make it. Paul was, I don't even remember, honestly. Doing his thing, probably. Yes.
Doing his thing at the time.
And so I think, I feel like I said, is close. I feel like Heidi and I connected a little more after, when we were a little bit older. But at that point, I definitely just survived. And
I do feel like, though, Liz, you were always there for me. You always took me under. I remember you say you always used to feel sorry for me because you used to let me hang out with you and your friends sometimes. I mean, what 17-year-old sister lets their annoying, I know I was annoying.
Yeah, you were.
Their annoying 13-year-old sister hang out with them. So,
Especially too,
don't be
because
too
Heidi was
hard on
always a
yourself.
goody two shoes.
She was a goody two shoes. Couldn't do anything.
She's like the Jiminy Cricket.
I literally always called her my Jiminy Cricket. Always. That's literally exactly what I called her.
I actually talked Liz out of a couple of things.
She did.
Sometimes.
She did. Yeah. So that's how I guess that's how I dealt with it. Was just did my thing, not in like some crazy way, but I definitely was selfish, and that's how I dealt with it. I took advantage of the fact that I could get away with more without, two sets of eyes watching me. Well, I guess I still did because Heidi still watched me, but, yeah. So
But I never told on you.
She didn't.
I would never do that.
She didn't. There are still things.
I may have been a goody two shoes, but I would never tell on my siblings. For all you siblings out there.
I actually use sometimes as an example for my own children.
So I know that, I guess for me, I went back to England, and I was just completely changed. Like, life just seemed hollow when I went back. And because at that time also a lot of my friends that I had been hanging, I mean, I was home for 40 days, and when you're in the Air Force on a base, a lot happens over the course of 40 days. So when I went back, there was a lot of people that I had been hanging out with that had, moved on to other bases. So I went back, and I just, there was the group of people that I had been spending most of my time with had really shrunk, and there wasn't many people left that not that I didn't know, but that I wasn't comfortable with anymore. So my whole pack we'd kind of broken up over that course of time. So there was a lot of loneliness that way. And, being back home, going back to church, I'd start, like God was working on me, but I'm in England, and I was torn in a lot of different directions. And but I will say this, and I wanted to share this. Before I went back to England, John Hemus, in some church service, John Hemus pulled me to the side and he was like, "Listen, Kevin, I know that when you go back over there, you're gonna go back to some of your old bad habits." And he's like, "I get it, God's got to change that." But he's like, "I just want to ask you to do me one favor." He's like, "Whenever you start missing your father or you're depressed, please do not drink to medicate those feelings of missing your dad or being depressed." And I took that advice to heart. And I remember a few times knowing that I was in a bad, like missing dad a lot or feeling depressed, I actually would just not go out, and I didn't drink whenever I was feeling that way. And I really feel like that helped me not develop serious alcoholic dependencies because John Hemus gave me that advice and I heeded it. And so I thank John for telling me that, because I feel like that really helped me get through that time. And but yeah, it was was very lonely over there as well for me. So and it's hard to find people to relate to when you're going through something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially, and I talked to you, Elizabeth, about this a little bit before we started, but it's like other people may lose their dads, but the thing about it, the way I felt was nobody lost my dad. Nobody lost John Trader, the John Trader to me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and even you guys, like I can't relate to you guys on that level. Like, you lost your dad and I lost my dad. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't know, I just that's something that stuck with me. So
I wasn't going to share this, but I don't think you guys know this about me. I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows this, maybe Joel, but I feel compelled to say this because maybe there's someone listening that has done this. But one way that I would deal with the pain is I would, with a safety pin, I would like cut myself. Wow. I don't know if did you know that, Mom? Oh, like that was just a way that I dealt with. I don't know. That's the way, and I don't know. Maybe there's someone out there that I have not shared that with. I don't even know. Maybe Joel. And he probably even forgot about it because it's been a really long time. And obviously God helped me through that, and it was a very short period of time, but that was something that I did because I felt like it helped offset the pain that I was feeling inside. Wow. I don't know.
Heidi, the craziest part about that.
Sorry, I didn't know. I don't know.
I didn't know that about you, but I used to do that too.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I think I was literally just talking about this to somebody because it actually turned into, this is so stupid, but it actually turned into, I would actually like create shapes. Like it wasn't even just cutting myself or like scraping. I did my initials one time. Like, and I probably still have scars from it, honestly, because
I would sit up here
yeah.
so nobody would see it. Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
I'm pointing to like my upper arm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I used to go shopping. That would take my pain away. Thankfully, John Trader left me so I could go shopping all the time. And I remember the bishop coming to me and saying, "Okay, Luann."
Yes, I do remember it because we definitely benefited from it.
Yes, we did. Finally got some new clothes. We did. Not hand-me-downs.
Yeah, well, I know that Mom buying us clothes from the actual store instead of a yard sale or Goodwill was definitely nice. Yeah. Christmases were a little more special after that as far as gifts were concerned.
Yeah. I was going to say, speaking of Christmas, I do remember our first Christmas without Dad. It was very weird. Like, I remember it was me, it was Paul, Liz, and Mom and I, and we opened our presents
Wait, I
Christmas
was
morning.
there.
No, you weren't?
Yes, he was.
You weren't?
We went to England.
I don't remember being there. Right. Okay, and Kevin. Kevin was there too, apparently.
I
See,
think
I thought
Amy was there too.
you weren't married to Amy.
I know, but she came over later that day.
Yes.
But this was like Christmas morning.
Yeah, Christmas morning, right?
And I remember we opened our gifts and then we all just went to our rooms. It was really weird. It was a very quiet Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like I sound a lot like Ava did. Just want to say that when she did the podcast. My
Okay, we're
voice
gonna
is
cut
sounding
that
like
out.
Ava.
So my next question was, how has his death affected your life? But I feel like we kind of covered that.
Well, I do want to say that I do think that it has made me more empathetic towards people. Like you said, I was a goody two shoes and I was very self-righteous, and I still was, like, as years went on, but I felt like it did bring me down. Like, going through all the things that I went through, it brought me down a couple of notches, and where I was able to be a little bit more empathetic towards people.
Yeah, I know that. Well, the funny thing is, prior to him passing away, I had started to get a little more serious about life. I read this book called Tuesdays with Maury, and it really caused me to look at life a lot differently. And so I had started to break away from my selfish partying phase and get a little more serious about life. But when Dad passed and we were on the way to the grave, and I looked back at that funeral procession, it had to have been a mile long. And I mean, we had cops at every stoplight stopping traffic so we could go through. And I thought, who is my father? I mean,
I remember thinking the same thing.
How are they? What did he do? And it just made me realize what you can do with your life. Because we never had money. He really, from any kind of natural standard, he wasn't really anybody important. But somehow he filled the church with people coming there to pay his respects. We had the flag at half-mast. And I just remember, I was like, it showed me what you can do with your life by just living and doing the best that you can.
Yeah.
And just loving people.
I can remember the funeral home people, Mr. Branco, talking to me, and people were calling the funeral home wanting to know who was there being laid out, because they're getting calls from people because there was so many people there.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was.
And I think as kids and as his kids, like I said, I was 17, Heidi was 13, Paul was 16, Kevin, you were what,
23.
23? Like,
And he was 21.
because to us, he was our dad, and I say this not like he was just our dad, but he was just our dad.
Right. I mean,
And so seeing
he
that,
was like a joker.
Yeah.
Like.
I think that was not only was it like, who was this guy, but it was I think important for us to know that he was someone that a lot of people really, really loved, really loved him and respected. And so that was, I remember thinking the same thing, like looking down at, out of the car at the procession and just thinking like, and of course my thought was, oh my God, did Dad see this? And that's your first thought. This is all for him. And I guess that's kind of the thing too, was like, oh my God, this is all for him. Like, this is all for him. Like, that was, I think as a kid, as a teenager, like, I knew he was important to me, but seeing that, I think it was important for us to know that he was important to other people.
I think it also impacted my family because they didn't realize just who John Trader was. And I think when they saw that, I remember my mom was like in shock. And I think it made them do a lot of thinking about who he really was and the man that he really was.
Yeah. Yeah. And that all was just a testament to the only thing he did, he just loved people, I guess. And that love came back, you know. That was amazing.
Yeah.
What effect did Dad's death have on your walk with God?
Well, I can say, I think because of support that we had, I think it made us stronger. But I can also be a member, and being angry. I was angry because, you know, you're taught, you know, when your kids are growing up that, you know, the mom is the one that does the disciplining and everything. When they become teenagers, the dad is supposed to take over. And I'm like, okay, buddy, where are you? You know, you're not here helping me out here, you know, and I was angry at the time. I was hurt. I was angry. But I also know because of his commitment and my church, and my family, I had a lot of family that really helped me through that time that I don't know what I'd do without them. But I have to say it was the prayers that kept us going and kept me going, and it affected me, and it made me a stronger person because of it, because I knew that we had been living for God for a little while, but I still felt like I was kind of new, even though I probably wasn't. But it opened my eyes up to who God really was, because he would fill my heart with a peace, because I knew where John was. So I got that peace in my heart that could only come from God. And so I knew that I was being prayed for. And I could tell when people were praying for me, I could feel this little lift in my spirit. And I just feel like it made me closer to God, where I could rely on him and trust him, because he got us through so much during those times. Even though we had our struggles at that time, he got us through it. He got us through it, and that was what it's about. And even though Heidi knows, and Liz and Paul knew, and Jenny, I did feel guilty at times, but I had to stay busy to get through it. Yeah. I had to stay busy, and even with each death that we've encountered in our family, I have to stay busy to get myself through these times, and then I can fall apart. But, you know, I just feel like he just made me stronger.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's hard to say because I was 13, and I do feel like I feel like as a teenager, you know, my relationship with God, it was like a roller coaster. You know, I would have good periods and bad periods. I do feel like it has made my walk with God stronger. It's just such a layered question for me, because going through Dad's death and then Paul and then Jenny, it's like for anyone really, whether you go through that or not, it's really been a journey. So it's just such a layered question for me. So it's hard to say. I mean, I just feel like, because I did talk about like the thoughts I would have and what I was doing. So it was, but I do feel like God was with me through all those periods. And actually, I was going to share this at the end, but I'll just share it now. I kept, Dad had like this really big Bible. It was like a blue, like concordance Bible. Mm-hmm. And after he passed, I would keep it with me. And I remember our youth pastor at the time, he was very young. When he was 17, he lost both of his parents. It was Andy Smith. And I remember him telling a story that when both of his parents passed away very close in time to each other, like within like a few weeks, right? And him telling a story about how when his parents passed, God gave him a verse, and that helped him. And I remember thinking, well, I want that. I want God to give me a verse that's going to help me. And so one time I was like praying, and I had the Dad's Bible. I said, God, you know, when I open this, I know it sounds really crazy, but it's true. When I open this Bible, give me a verse that I know that you're there. And it was Hebrews 13:5, and the second half says, "For I will never leave you nor forsake you." And I've always kept that close to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, you know, just I had a lot of lonely times, but yet through all those, I feel like I've always known that God has been with me. He's been with all of us, and His grace is what has gotten us through each of these periods, each of these losses. So it's just a layered question for me because of all the things that we've gone through. But even in my lowest moments, when it felt like he wasn't there, I know that he was. And it was just his grace that was getting me through those moments.
Awesome. We can take a little break before you go, Liz.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
We're back. And Liz, we were talking about what effect Dad's passing has had on your walk with God.
I think I could just go along with Heidi with that one. Yeah, that sounds good. But really, I like she said, it was. I think there was just layers to it. I know I was mad at him for a while, and I remember someone telling me, it's okay to be mad at God. You just can't stay mad at God, and I always took that to heart. With other stuff that we went through, that was kind of my thing. Like, I was like, okay, it's fine to be mad. I just can't stay mad. But right now I'm mad. And I feel like that was a pretty prevalent emotion for me for a while, maybe off and on, but definitely for a while. And while I do know, and I'm not trying to just sound like I was some super spiritual person, because I certainly wasn't and am not, but I do know that I knew even then, and I know now that even when I was mad, like, I still, like, I wouldn't say at 17 I had peace. I'm not going to go that far. Now is different. But then, I knew that, I don't even know how to say it. Not that everything was going to be okay, but I guess kind of everything was going to be okay. Like, I didn't feel hopeless about it, or I was sad. And like Heidi said, it felt like your heart had been ripped out. And there was times when I think the way that me and Heidi differed was, and Mom too, is I got really good at just stomping down my emotions and just putting them aside, because I just really didn't want to deal with them, because it was just.
And I was the exact opposite.
Yes, Heidi was.
I just let it all out.
All of it. So I got really good at just keeping it all, and so then it took me longer to dig it all back out, which that's even more painful. So if I have any advice to someone going through stuff, just let it out. It's much easier.
Yeah, no, you have to embrace the grief.
Yes.
And you have to just let it go, man, because.
And I remember seeing, like, in church services, when Mom would be getting prayer and crying, or Heidi would be getting prayer and crying, or whatever, and I'd just be like, oh Lord, here we go again. Like, how, like, to me it was just like,
I get that, though.
it was just tiring, like,
It is.
and so I just didn't think about it.
That's how I felt by the time we got to Jenny.
But I will say this, another thing, something for me was, people talk about the pain being healed and all of this. I didn't want it to be healed, because that pain, in my mind, that pain connected me to Dad, and I was afraid that if I got healed of it, that I would lose my connection with him.
I literally have that in my notes to say today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really, that was a fear for me, that somehow I would forget him if I got healed of the pain.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. Very true. I think one of the toughest things too during that time is there was nobody that we knew that was going through this, or that had gone through this. Mm-hmm. So we really had nobody to, even though people were there to help us through it, there's nobody there that could give to help us, to relate to us. So we didn't have people to talk to that knew what we were actually experiencing. I think that was the hardest thing. So even though people were there that you could talk to and just kind of bounce things off or help you and pray, but to really talk about it and what you're feeling, that wasn't there at that time, because there was nobody that we knew that had been through this.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that.
Yeah. But people did try.
No,
they did. A lot of people.
We couldn't have made it without the church that was around us.
Yes.
That we couldn't have made it. That really helped. They carried us a long time.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
I'm always very thankful to the people that stepped up for my kids, because I couldn't do it. And I think that God led certain people to their lives to help them through this because God knows I can't do this. And that's how it is to today. We can't go through things in life without the support of God and church and our fellow believers to help us through these tough times that everybody goes through, and being able to rely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another thing for me that when Dad died, going to heaven for me was and death. That was always really a scary thing for me growing up. I've always been just like so afraid of dying. I mean, I can remember times like I remember one time in particular I was watching a movie about the Civil War with Meemaw, and this thought came into my mind that we're watching this movie, and this thought came into my mind that all of the people in this movie are dead, and you're going to die one day, and there's no way out of it, and you have to die in order to, you will, if you're alive, and it battered me to the point that I actually ran to the bathroom and threw up. I was so troubled, and I was probably like 12 years old.
My God, Kevin.
I mean, I've always just been so afraid of dying, and when Dad died, my whole view flipped. And I remember I was back in England, and my job was to drive like bombs and missiles out to the flight line, and I was in the truck, and I was pulling a load out to the flight line and thinking about Dad, and I got this like determination came over me. And I wasn't living for God at the time, but I remember in that moment, I made up my mind that no matter what happened, somehow, because I knew where Dad was, somehow I was going to see him again. And I remember saying, God, whatever you have to do, I don't care what you have to do, but make sure that I make it to see my father. And I would say that since that day, I have not been afraid of dying. So even though at that point I wasn't really living for God, but I knew that God was going to start his work on me, and a determination came to me. Not that there's been a lot of ups and downs, but I've had this determination to make it ever since that day, and I would say that since that day I haven't been afraid of the idea of dying. Doesn't scare me anymore like it used to. So, okay, here's a question for you. When you look back on the entirety of your life since, would you change it?
It's a hard question. Yes.
I know.
I actually even have that written down, that's a hard question. I think that the most honest answer, or the shortest answer, I know there's lots of things that go into it, but yes, I would. Because the thing is, I wish they were all here with us. Like, I wish my dad was here. I wish Jenny was here. I wish Paul was here. Like, I wish they were all here. And while there are things that happen in our lives because of that, or, as an offshoot of that, we don't know. We don't know how different things would be if he were here, and we don't know what has changed because he's not here. So I wish my dad was here, and maybe my life would be different, but I wouldn't know that.
That's true.
And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's, selfish, but he died, and
He shouldn't have.
He shouldn't have. And he left us without a dad, without a husband, just my grandmother lost her son. I know everything happens for a reason. And I know that's true. And I know that things happened because of his death, and people were changed because of his impact, but it wasn't fair. And I wish he was still here.
Yeah, I don't really know if I can answer that question because, like Liz said, it's like we lost our dad. At the same time, there are things that have happened in my life that I don't necessarily know would have happened otherwise. Like, I don't know if I would have married Joel.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I don't know if I would be the person that I am today. Like, I don't know if this is going to sound callous, but, I feel like it's made me reflect a lot on who I am as a person and like I said before, helped me to become more empathetic towards other people. But at the same time, is it worth that loss? I really don't know. And I really can't say unless I experienced life with dad and life without dad, if that makes sense. Sliding doors, that's right. So I don't know if I can answer that question, Because at the same time, I do miss him, and it's like, grief is a weird thing, There are things that happen in your life where you grieve that loss all over again, because when things happen in your life where that person should be there, you grieve that loss all over again. When you graduate from high school, he passed your senior year, your wedding day, the birth of your children.
He was a month away from meeting his first
I know,
grandchild.
gosh, man, that.
Right.
Like, literally almost exactly a month. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Juliet was born January 29th.
They passed each other.
Yeah. Look at it that way. So it's just hard to answer that question because you don't know what life would have. I don't know what life would have been like with him here. I only know what life is like without him here. If
Mom?
that makes sense.
Repeat the question.
When you look back on the entirety of your life since, would you change it?
I know.
That's really a tough one. I probably wouldn't have spent as much money in the beginning. I don't even know if I can answer a question like that because I've had so many changes in my life. And like they were saying earlier, the layers of what it's been through. And one of the first thoughts that came to my mind, Heidi, is what you said is, when each child is born, when each grandchild was born, even though I remarried, John Schrader should have been there for that because this is his legacy. These are his kids. These are his grandchildren. Even though Ron accepted everybody as his own, which I'm very thankful for, John should have been there. And that was the first thought I had when every child is born. It's like he should be standing next to me looking at his grandchild for the first time. And I'll never forget that.
Because none of us would be here. None of us would be saved if it wasn't for him, because he was the one that first came to church.
Yeah.
None of us, we wouldn't be here.
That's right.
We would probably be lost.
Yes.
I agree with Heidi 100% on that. I just, you don't know what is in store for your future. You can plan, you can have goals. I mean, when we got married and we had kids, we were supposed to live happily ever after and supposed to be in rocking chairs on a porch one day, and I look back at it and I'm thinking, wow, okay, what's next? And you can't help but think that. You just can't. And when it comes to grief never goes away. Grief is a lifelong process, and it'll be in different stages, different waves, but it's always going to be there. It's a process. And people say, oh, don't worry, it's going to get better. It does get better at times, but then it's going to come back at times. And I think we have to be conscientious of that and how it affects other people, because we are a reflection of God to other people and how we handle things, and just knowing that he is the one that's getting us there. And Heidi is right. John was the first one that came to church, and he's the one that got us there. And it's his prayers and the man that he was that's affected us and everyone around us to go forward and to become who God wants us to be for each other, for our own children, so that we can see him again one day and the rest of them, because it's going to be a party of all parties.
Yeah. Well, you guys make me not want to give my answer to that question, because it's going to come across as being maybe selfish, but I've thought about Dad every single day since that day, and I have thought about that question almost as many times, because there's been so many times when I wished Dad was there, and I wish that he could know my sons and all the things. But if I'm being honest, if Dad hadn't died, I probably wouldn't have those sons. And the thing about it, and if I'm being brutally honest, if Dad hadn't died, I probably wouldn't have appreciated who he was. Because I remember, growing up, everybody used to say, "Oh, you remind me of your father." And even at his funeral, the firefighters that were standing by the casket were like, "Man, you're just like John." And it drove me insane hearing that all the time until he died. And then it became sort of like a badge of honor. And I wouldn't, but if he hadn't died, I wouldn't appreciate it. And, soon after he died, somebody came up to me, and I mean, I don't think it was the right thing for them to say to me, and I really brushed them off. But they said, what if he died so that you would be saved? Which is not something you should say to somebody right after their father died. However, many years after, that question came back to me, and it was like, what if that is why he died? And obviously, that can't be the only reason, because God doesn't work like that. But I can't say that I would. Me personally, I can't say that I would. I'm glad. I'm glad things worked out the way they did. I probably never would have met Amy. I met her at his funeral. I wouldn't have the kids that I have. I mean, my plans were to stay in Europe, and live that life. And I hope you guys don't think less of me for saying that, but
People used to say that all the time, like, so and so came to church because of the impact of your dad, and that used to infuriate me when they would say that. Like, why did my dad have to die for you to come to church? Like,
right.
That's not fair. Like, that's dumb. Like, but Kevin, if I was doing so good, if Dad had to die for you to come back home and be saved, then I'm not saying I'm okay with him dying, but that helps a little. Truly.
Well, good. We got rained in here. Well, I was afraid that would have a negative impact, so I'm glad you feel that way.
But I think that is just because you and Liz were on very opposite ends, and I was like in the middle, where I was like, I don't know. But I think that's a perfect example of, like, grief truly does affect people in different ways. Everybody deals with grief in different ways, and when someone is experiencing that loss, you have to come with that understanding that your grief is not the same as you can have a little bit of understanding of what they're going through, but your grief is not the same as theirs. Their grief is not the same as yours.
But I have to say, like, initially, for the first few years, that realization came with shame. Mm-hmm. like really, like I had to have that in order for you to get my attention. Like that had to happen to me in order for me to be saved. I had, and then and that had to affect my sisters. But God, God doesn't do that. Like he had a
Right.
purpose for everybody in that. So it's not like he was doing that just for me and you guys had to deal with it. But it took a long time for me to understand, and so I dealt with a lot of shame. Like that's really how bad off I was. You know what I mean? So
But we don't know. I mean, I say that I wouldn't change it, but because I don't know how things would have been different. But maybe I wouldn't have been saved either if
Right.
he hadn't died. So, while you had the realization of that, like I didn't. I was at that point. I was here, so it was easier for me to stay in line, so to speak. I'm saying that in a very simplistic way. I don't mean it like a stay in line to go
No.
to church, but the accountability was here for me. I was still living under our, mom's roof. I was still, super involved in church and youth. And I had, like Mom said, I had those people in my life. Like, gosh, I don't know what we would have done without Andy and Melinda Smith. I mean, she's a flip. So, it was easier, but, who's to say where I would be now if that had happened? So, while you have that realization, we don't know. I wish he was here, but we don't know.
right.
We just don't know.
That's when you just have to trust God. That's
Yeah.
the bottom line is
That
trusting
is the
God.
bottom line.
Mom's
Famous words.
famous words.
I know I can't ever say just trust God because I do say it, but I always hear Mom say it in my head when I say it. I'm like, geez, I sound just like my mother.
That term though, that was like the biggest realization for me is like trusting God, trust God. And I used to always think that meant trust God, that everything's going to be okay. But that's not what that means. It's just
Right.
trusting God that whatever happens, God's going to get you through it. And he's going
Yeah.
to give you the grace to get you through what's going on.
That's a massive revelation.
Right. But that was it for me. I'm like, oh, it's not that everything's going to be okay, because everything's not going to be okay, but that he's going to get us through those moments, and give us the grace to get through those moments.
Right. So the next question is sort of related to that one, but have you learned anything from that experience that you consider worth the pain?
I honestly don't have any notes on this.
Well, I already said it.
Yeah, I feel like
I did already say it, but I mean, just coming from, I keep saying it, but I was 13, so I was very young. But, I was a very self-righteous person, even as a teenager. I mean, I can still be a little self-righteous, to be honest. But hey, I'm just being honest. That's my sin, okay? That's my one thing I go through. But I do feel like I said before, it has brought me down a little bit and made me less judgmental towards people. I mean, I don't like that about myself. And so that has helped me. Like all the things that I went through with the dark thoughts I would have, the cutting, it did, even though those are really dark things to have to do and to go through, I do feel like it did help me to become, I don't know if this is weird to say, but a better person. I don't know the person I would have been. I think I would have still been saved. I don't think just because of the way I was. I was like, I was definitely a rule follower. I still am a rule follower. But it's helped me to be a little bit more realistic with people too, and expectations.
Well, and the thing is, like, I don't know what I was getting ready to say. Actually, sorry.
Okay.
Mom, do you look back and feel like anything that you learned from that experience that you consider worth the pain of it?
No. Flat out, no.
That's fair.
The pain was just, and still is, as you can see. I'm thankful. I'm thankful that he made it home, but it doesn't make it. No, it doesn't make it worth the experience.
That's fair. Yeah. So for me, there's two things that I got from that experience that now I don't want to say they were worth the pain,
We're all,
but
we were all different.
I don't think I could have learned this any other way. And one of the things is this was probably, I don't know, maybe probably 8 or 9 years after I was just feeling really like just angry. I was angry like for a long time after that experience. And one night I just had enough, and I actually came up to the church and I went into the chapel, and it was like midnight, and it was a Saturday night, and I sat down on the chairs and I said, I am not going to leave this room until something is different about me. And we had the Hispanic congregation meets in the chapel, and I said, I don't care if I'm still here when the Hispanic congregation gets here. I'm not leaving until something is different. And I just sat there. I sat there for like an hour and didn't say a word. And then I just started to think about Dad and think about the death and think about all these different things that had happened, because this was after Paul had died too. So I started thinking about all the things that have happened, all the things that happened in my life, and I just got angrier and angrier and angrier. And I said, why did you take my father from me? And as soon as I said that, God spoke to me and said, I didn't take your father. He said, it was his time to go. I didn't take him. He said, what I did do was I gave you an opportunity to make me your father.
Wow.
Wow.
When I heard that come to me, I fell to the ground and I just repented.
It's powerful. Yeah.
And I have been different since that night, and I have been able to see God. In fact, I started calling God Dad after that for a little while, and it got weird. But since that night, I have been able to look at God as my father, and when I've had questions or needed things, I've been able to go to him and trust him as I trusted my father, and a void that Dad left in me was filled that night. And I feel like that was worth the pain, if I could be so bold as to say that.
Yeah. I mean, we all have different experiences.
Yeah.
You know, so I think what you have, it's going to be different for all of us.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's another realization. I like to share this, and I shared it in another episode. I can't remember which one it was, but after I didn't really like holidays for a while after Dad passed away. I just didn't like holidays because all these people would gather, and you could just feel that vacuum. It was like when him not being there was like a vacuum, and you could just feel the void. And then we lost Paul, and then we lost Jenny, and you could just feel that void so strongly. And I just hated all of us coming together and feeling that. You know what I mean? And I was sharing that with somebody, and they said to me, that pain that you feel when your family gets together, that void that you feel, God has given you an opportunity to share in what he feels when his people come together.
Wow.
And there's people missing from that assembly. And
Wow.
I'm not saying that's worth the pain, but that was a very deep lesson for me that I've held on to.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. What would you pass on to someone who loses a person they love unexpectedly? And tied into that, what lesson do you think needs to be passed on to others in similar circumstances? I guess they're both kind of the same question.
You can go ahead.
Well, it's what you said earlier about how you didn't, right, you said this right, you didn't want God to heal you because you felt like it was your way of connecting with dad. You would lose your connection with dad. And that was how I felt. Well-meaning people, very well-meaning people would say, God's going to fill that hole in your heart. But I didn't want God to fill that hole in my heart because that pain represented dad being there. And I don't necessarily think that God ever did fill that hole in my heart because I don't really think that was his intention, but he does help you to deal with that pain. And so I don't want, if that's how anyone is feeling that has dealt with loss, I don't want that to keep them from the healing that can take place. Mm-hmm. Because just because God heals you, it doesn't mean that pain is fully going to go away, and that's okay. For me, I didn't want it to go away because it was a piece of them that I have. I mean, I was very angry. We all, that 5 stages of grief: angry, depressed, after dad passed. And so for me, the healing was more so for the anger and for the depression, and not necessarily for the pain of the loss, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I mean, the pain has gotten better, but when the first couple years, that pain was constant every day, and it has gotten better. I don't feel that constant pain every day. I don't know if that's like time or whatever, but there are times where I do still feel sometimes like he just died yesterday, but I do believe that he will give you the grace to get through each day and just somebody told me, and I've kept this with me, 1 day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute, 1 second when dealing with loss. That was like, I think that was after dad died, because I was in high school and they told me that. So.
I guess for me, it was, I don't think I would limit this to just someone who's lost someone suddenly. I think it's just grief in general.
Coming a little closer.
Yeah, I think it's just grief in general, and I think we've already talked on it. Heidi's talked about it a little bit, but I have it in my notes. So it's just that everyone grieves and processes in their own way, mm-hmm. and how you do it is not how I do it. And while it never bothered me to share my story or our story, or talk about this, because there are people who wouldn't talk about it with us because they were afraid, but honestly, for me, it's always helped to talk about people. I love knowing that people remember dad, or people remember Paul, or people remember Jenny. Like I appreciate that.
I love when people tell me stories about any of them.
Yeah. But that's me. So because it doesn't bother me doesn't mean it's not going to bother you. And, so the way I process things is going to be different from the way mom processes things, the way Kevin processes things, and the way Heidi. We've already talked about all that, but again, like I said, it was just, maybe it's in my notes because it was supposed to be said again. I don't know, but so even though we were all in the exact same situation, we all had our own variables in it. And another thing is, as awful as it was, I've always considered this a little bit of a blessing. It would have been great to have had more time with him and say goodbye and all that. And it was really, really awful to lose him so suddenly. But, he went out happy. Like,
he didn't suffer.
It was quick. Like, he was on top one day and then with God the next second. So, it was really hard. The shock of that, I think, for us made it harder to process things. It just maybe took a little longer, but I've always been grateful that we didn't have to, watch him suffer, or even Jenny or Heidi and, whatever. But, again, that's the one, that's just how I process things.
I think it teaches you and it helps you with other people because you learn everybody is different. Everybody processes different. And the most important thing you can be for somebody is just be there. Yes. Not tell them how they should feel and what they should do and how long it's going to take, because nobody does know, because everybody's walk is different. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's relationship is different. So we're all going to process different. And I think that's the most important thing to learn. I mean, I look at me, I looked at my mother-in-law. I mean, she lost, 5 children. She lost 4. She's got 1 left. And I just couldn't imagine that, and her husband. Yeah. And her process was different. So you can't judge. I think that's the biggest thing you learn from this is it taught me to not judge and to be there. And like I said, you don't need to talk to them. Just letting them know that you are there. And if there is anybody that is listening that is going through this, that we're here. We're here to help and we'll be there. And that's what got us through it as a family is we all struggled. We all had our struggles during that time. But I can say because people were there for us and watching us helped us through it and still help us through it. I mean, we went through fresh stuff again with our family and we have our struggles with our heart issues and I'm thankful. I'm very thankful because I know where my family is. And that's what gets me through it. That's what gives me the peace. That's what gives me my joy is knowing that my husband, my kids are home. And even though I miss them every day and holidays are tough, they always will be. And at first I was angry at God because he took your dad away 2 days after Christmas, my favorite holiday. He took Paul Memorial Weekend. He took Jenny Easter. And I'm like, okay, man, what are you doing here? This isn't fair. But I feel like he spoke to me. He said, and this is to make your grief easier because it gives you something else to focus on. Instead of me sitting home and feeling sorry for myself, I can focus on him and focus on my family and us getting together as a family during these times to help each other through it. And God has his way of doing things that we will never understand. And as you all know, that's where the trust comes in.
Yeah, we say God is good. I don't think we can ever comprehend exactly what that means. You saying that about wrapping the deaths around holidays and how that, that's an amazing insight. That God did that for you. And it's so, when you say God is good, it feels like that's not enough to say, but really that says it all,
Yeah, it does.
But it's hard to comprehend what that really encompasses.
I mean, can you imagine this was going to happen regardless of whether we live for God or not? These things are going to happen in our lives because some things are just life. They're not a spiritual thing. It's just life. And this was going to happen regardless. But can you imagine going through this without God?
I can't.
No, we can't. We'd all be alcoholics. I mean, that's what I always say. I'd be an alcoholic because I can't imagine not having God in my life and my family together. And I think the worst part for me is watching my family go through these things. And I watched Paul go through the loss of his dad. And then Jenny, I mean, I thought she was going to have that baby right then when it happened because she literally lost it. She lost it. And so my strength came from being a mom and just being who I needed to be for my family at that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think what I would pass on to people is like, for one thing, what you guys are saying, like, everybody experiences it differently, and we've already said this, but I think it's important to understand that when you have a loss, that person that you lose is a different person for other people that who the other people lost, even if it's our dad. You know, it's my dad and it's Heidi's dad and it's Liz's dad. It's not just our dad, and that means something different to each of us. And so I think that we need to understand that when we see other people dealing with loss, we need to understand that and help them in that situation by not saying, "Oh, I know how you feel," because you don't know how they feel.
No, we don't know.
So that's one lesson. And another thing is, don't be afraid of the grief. Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. You know, I think especially as Christians, sometimes we think that we're supposed to just take all this stuff in stride and trust God. But trusting God doesn't mean that you don't feel. It doesn't mean that you don't have emotions.
And it's okay to feel, and it's okay to have emotions. You're supposed to.
I remember Tootsie is my mom's mom, and she's our other grandmother, and we called her Tootsie. But I remember when I think one of her sons passed away, I was in her kitchen a couple of days after, and she had to go deal with some of this stuff, and she said, "I just hate it when people die." And I thought, man, she just said it all right there, man. Really, like, and you know what? It's okay. That's okay to feel that way.
Yes, it is.
It's okay to look at your life sometimes and say, man, this is garbage. I hate this. That is 100% okay. You know, trusting God doesn't mean you're going to love everything you go through. But it just means you trust God and endure through it. And endurance doesn't mean you're having a good time.
No.
So you embrace that grief. You cry when you feel like crying. You get angry when you feel like being angry. And you get through those moments. And then just at the end of all of those moments, turn your eyes towards Him and let Him carry you the rest of the way. That's the best thing I can say. That's the best lesson I've learned. So we're bringing this thing in. So we've been going for a while. So I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity at the end of this. If there's anything else you guys would like to personally share, or that you, and more importantly, feel like God would like you to share before we wrap this up.
I already shared it with the verse that God gave me. I think that when you go through not any kind of loss or any kind of difficult times, God has a way of showing Himself to you and showing you that, you know, He hasn't left you. Even in those darkest times, those times when you feel like He isn't there, He comes through and He shows you that He has been there all along. For me, it was the Bible verse, but many other times in different ways God has showed up for me and for our family. It's amazing how God is taking care of our family through all of this. I mean, you, Mom, like, it's really crazy how the things that God has done for you. Honestly, I don't know anyone that where God has done that, but really, like, you know, whether you ask Him or not, God will show up for you. And He is with you. I know that sounds so basic, but, you know, and His grace will get you through.
Amen.
You go ahead. That's fine.
I think one of the biggest things I can say is let people in when you're going through this. Let them help you through it. We have a tendency, and this was my biggest thing, is I would withdraw within myself a lot because I just didn't know what to do, I think. So I would just separate myself from people. And I knew it was not the right thing to do. And sometimes you do need the alone time. But I think is let it happen. Let it flow in you. And let God flow through you. And just let the people in to help you that want to help you. Whether you like those people or not, it's okay. It's just being that they want to be there for you. They want to love you. They want to help you through it. and trusting and relying. The fellowship of the people around you are so important. That's where you're going to get your support. That's where you're going to get your strength, because they will help you and they pray for you, and they're there for you, and that's important to me.
Amen.
When my dad first died, I remember Bishop and Mother Wright came over to our house. I think it was like the same day, or maybe it was the next. They were out of town. I remember
they were in
that,
New York.
and they came, and I remember I can picture them sitting in our dining room, talking to us, and Bishop Wright saying, "There's 3 things you have to remember that you know is true: God is good, God is right, and God is just." And I remember when he said that, that was not what I wanted to hear. Like, not at all. It actually kind of made me kind of mad. Like, I'm like, how can that be true? My dad just died. Like, that's not true. But over the years, I feel like I've kind of learned to use that as my compass, so to speak. Like, even when I know everything I've gone through, different things, not even just, people dying, my dad, my brother, my sister, I could just keep going on forever. But not even just that, it's just other things I've been through. It's just life things, other things. Like if I literally repeat that like a mantra: God is good, God is just, God is right. Because if I know that to be true, it doesn't necessarily make things easier, but it kind of does at the same time. Like it helps bring me that, like, I guess, peace, so to speak. Like I don't really know how to explain it without, I'm not really sure how to explain it, but I just know that those, even though at the time it didn't make me happy to hear it, in the 25 years since, I've come back to those 3 things many, many times. And that's my compass.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys again for coming here. I know that this hasn't been easy, and I know you've probably been dreading this night, but I really appreciate you guys coming here and sharing and being so vulnerable, and I really believe that this is going to help people that might be dealing with some similar circumstances or, whatever. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and I love you.
Thank you for having us. It's truly been an honor to be on your podcast and for sharing this moment with you. So thank you.
I felt like it was sort of a therapy session. Yeah, honestly,
because we've never.
I just want to hear the gavel.
I didn't bring it.
But I don't know if we've really sat down and talked about this. I don't think we have this before. No. So
we tend to joke about it more than
we do
have deep conversations about
that's
it.
how we get
it's easier to laugh and
Yes.
joke about it.
Yeah, we're morbid. All right, well, thank you again, guys. I love you.
Love you. Love you. Love you.
With that, my mom, Liz, and Heidi have stepped down from the stand, and I want to thank them one more time for their willingness to come on here and share. It is a very brave thing to be willing to come and bare your soul to anyone who listens, and I'm deeply appreciative of their willingness to do that. Now, there are so many things from what we have just heard that I would like to comment on, but I feel it is more important at this moment that I address you directly. I believe 2 of the main feelings that we are left with when dealing with grief and loss are emptiness and loneliness. These feelings can be so overwhelming, you can feel completely overtaken and engulfed. But Psalms 145, 18 through 19 says, "The Lord is near to all who call upon him, to all who call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of those who fear him. He will also hear their cry and save them." It reminds me of an old song that says, "In the very thought of Jesus," let me say that again, "in the very thought of Jesus, His presence can be found. He's as close as the mention of his name. There is never any distance between my Lord and me. He's as close as the mention of his name. He's as close as the mention of his name. Jesus. Jesus. My friend, if you're listening to this podcast and you can relate to anything you've heard, I urge you, the next time you're feeling like you're at the end, just try saying, Jesus. Jesus. Before I sign off, I want to take a moment and dedicate this podcast episode. I dedicate it to the memory of my sister, Jenny Dennis, my first best friend, who I love and miss every day. And to my brother, Paul Trader, the man who, when you left this world, you inspired me to do better. And watching what you did with your few years on this earth made me realize that perhaps I could have an impact too. Of course, to my dad, John Trader, I don't think any more needs to be said about that. But maybe most importantly, I want to dedicate it to all of you out there who have empty seats around your table. I hope listening to this has in some way helped you. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you in Jesus' name. We are adjourned.